Here with me now to talk about all of this and more is the chairman of the House Judiciary Committee, Jim Jordan. Thank you so much for being here, sir. So 3 weeks ago, President Trump named 3 people in that Truth Social post to Attorney General Pam Bondi that he wanted prosecuted. 2 of them have now been indicted. You're not only the Judiciary Chair, you also lead a subcommittee on weaponization of federal government. So will you be looking into this?
Well, look, I think that this Justice Department is applying the facts to the law. I mean, if John Bolton, a federal judge, thought there was probable cause when they searched John Bolton's house, you had mentioned him, that he mishandled classified information, apply the facts to the law. We'll see if they prosecute there. We know with Letitia James, for example, that you can't say it's your secondary residence and then, in fact, make it an investment property. It looks like she did that. They're applying the facts to the law, and there's that investigation. And, of course, we know with Jim Comey that he specifically hired this individual, Daniel Richman, to leak information. He laundered information through Richman, leaked that information out there. The Comey memos, for goodness sake, went through Mr. Richman. And then Comey, when he testifies, says something different. So that's why he's being prosecuted. So this is our Justice Department, under the leadership of the Attorney General, applying the facts to the law like you are supposed to. Not the weaponization of government like we saw under Biden, like we saw under Merrick Garland, like we saw with Chris Wray. So this is, I think, a completely different situation.
Okay, so let's just unpack some of that, if I may, Mr. Chairman. You were talking about the facts and some of the issues that went before the grand jury and allowed for the indictments in the case of James and Comey. But the question is beyond what's happening in the courtrooms or in the Justice Department. It's what's happening between the President of the United States and the Justice Department and these U.S. attorneys. And just kind of look at it big picture, the President pushed out the U.S. attorney overseeing the Comey and James cases. The President himself appointed this U.S. attorney, and that person was a Trump supporter.
Which he has the right to do.
Right, he has the right to do. But the President did so because he thought that this man was not pursuing these cases against his political enemies. So my question is, given the fact that the President has been so public about his desire for the prosecution of these people who he says are his political enemies, how is that just following the law inside the Justice Department? Isn't this the political weaponization that you talk about?
No, you got to go to the facts of the case. The president has the prerogative to say what he wants, and he will do that. No one's ever doubted that the president will say what's on his mind and frankly do what he told the American voters he was going to do. So that's one thing. But this is about applying the facts to the law, and that's exactly what's taking place in this Justice Department. You cannot argue with the fact Jim Comey said one thing to under oath in front of the United States Congress. That's what he's being charged for: false statements to the Congress, 18 U.S.C. 1001. You cannot argue that he did that, particularly when you know the facts from the Inspector General with this individual, Daniel Richman,
who
Comey
that the Justice Department
hired to launder information to folks like you in the press.
Do you believe that the Justice Department is acting independently from the president?
I think the Justice Department is applying the facts to the case.
But are they doing it under pressure from the president? Are they trying to find ways to indict people who the president said publicly in that post he wants to be prosecuted?
I think that, Dan, I think they're doing their job. I think they are doing their job. I mean, I know the kind of information they're giving to Congress, information we did not get under the previous FBI director or from the previous attorney general. Information, we had looked at this issue. The FBI and the Richmond field office did this memorandum on Catholics, saying if you're a pro-life Catholic, you're somehow an extremist. We got like a handful of documents from Chris Wray, even though we asked for everything.
Should they be doing their job under pressure from the president?
They are doing their job.
So you're saying you're comfortable with that?
They are doing their job.
But you're comfortable with them doing this?
Applying the facts to the law. I'm looking at each individual case, enforcing the law and applying the facts to that. And that's what I think is going on.
I'll add one more application
in the 3 examples that you raised.
Forgive me. I'll ask one more application to that. Applying the facts, applying the law, fine. How about applying pressure from the White House? You're comfortable with that, given the fact that you were very upset about what you called weaponization so much that you have a whole new subcommittee on it?
the, the president is speaking his mind, and I think that's entirely appropriate. What I know this Justice Department is doing is the good work that they're supposed to do, looking at the law, looking at the facts, looking at each individual case, and moving forward, I think, in an appropriate fashion.
Let's talk about
and
these
you can't
cases.
argue with, I mean, Jim Comey, by the way, Jim Comey is where it all, so you talk about weaponization, that's where it all started. 9 years ago, Jim Comey's the guy who took the dossier paid for by the other
But
party's
that's not what
campaign,
he's being
Clinton
prosecuted
campaign,
for.
used that. I understand that, but I'm just saying this is, you want to talk about weaponization, it's Jim Comey's where it started. That is totally where it started. He took the dossier, went to the secret court to get a warrant to spy on the other party's campaign.
So this
And
is
we know that-
retribution,
and then they
then?
changed the intelligence community assessment after the first.
So you're
first-
saying
no,
this is
This is
retribution
about
against
looking
him?
at the facts, looking at the law. No, I'm just saying Jim Comey. This is you mentioned weaponization. I'm saying that's where it all started.
Well,
what I'm saying is happening here is they're looking at the facts and they're applying the law to each individual case.
Let me ask about those cases. Are you worried, as an attorney and somebody who understands how these cases work, that what the president's comments are doing is actually undermining the cases when they actually come before a judge and jury?
I mean, we'll see how that all shakes. No, I'm not worried about that. Again, they're going to prosecute the case. Mr. Comey's presumed innocent. That's one of the great things about our system. And they will present the evidence in the court, and we'll see what happens as they move forward. But I am comfortable with them moving forward. I am comfortable with the indictment because I think when you look at the facts.
And you're comfortable with the president's role as well?
This is warranted.
Just to button that, you're comfortable with the president's
role?
Yeah,
I'm very comfortable with this president. I mean, you talk about we're celebrating today what's happening in the Middle East, what he's done for
I'm not
these
talking about
families
that.
who are
I'm
getting
talking
hostage.
about in this issue.
I'm so comfortable with the president. I'm comfortable with the president and how he's handled his entire responsibilities with this issue, with foreign policy, with the border, with tax policy, you name it.
I want to ask you about a flood of videos that we're all seeing on social media showing immigration officers across the U.S. using pretty aggressive tactics. There was one from Friday showing agents pinning a Chicago TV station employee to the ground. She was later released without charges. Another shows ICE agents shooting an unarmed pastor in the head with pepper balls. There were countless more showing agents tackling people, pulling them from cars, shoving journalists, detaining U.S. citizens, questioning their citizenship. Do you have any concerns as you see all this about how ICE and other immigration agencies are conducting themselves?
Look, I don't know the specifics of those examples you gave. What I do know is these ICE agents are under tremendous pressure. Many times you talked about, some people have raised a concern about them wearing masks and different things. Many times the Antifa people who are protesting against them in these, in Chicago, in these ICE-free zones, according to the mayor of Chicago. I think they're functioning and working under extreme pressure. I think they're doing a good job by and large. I don't know the specifics of the examples you just cited.
Are you going to look into it?
Well, we're going to look into the whole situation where you have these mayors who are
are you going to look
pressuring
into
back
the way
against
that
these
ICE
sanctuary
is
cities,
conducting
ICE-free
itself?
zones, where they're being harassed by Antifa protesters who are wearing masks and doing all kinds of things, where I think threatening the.
So you'll
the
only
actual
look into
federal
that side and
facilities.
not to
So
make sure that federal law enforcement, federal.
I'm not familiar with the three. I think you gave three examples.
Well,
Dana. I'm not
those were
familiar with
just
those
some.
three, but we'll
there are lots of them.
Okay, well, we're the Judiciary Committee. We have oversight over immigration policy. We'll look into all this. But I think the ICE agents are doing the Lord's work. They're doing what the president promised the American people he was going to do when he ran for the job and was elected in a big way. So I think they're doing their duty. What's interesting is the pushback they're getting in these sanctuary jurisdictions and these ICE-free zones, where many times they're coming to, they've sent a detainer to the facility, and they will release the person to the streets, the bad guy to the streets, and won't work with ICE at all.
Mr.
That
Chairman,
is a big problem, something we are definitely concerned about.
Mr. Chairman, we're almost out of time. I do want to ask you about the Trump administration started to lay off about 4,000 federal workers on Friday night. Your fellow Republican, Lisa Murkowski, said that this is something that will, quote, hurt hardworking Americans who have dedicated their lives to public service and jeopardize agency missions once we finally reopen the government. Why is the president firing people who have no say in this shutdown?
Dan, the easiest way to remedy this is for Chuck Schumer to open up the government. I mean, we should just be clear. The real debate here is the one Chuck Schumer's having,
Yeah, but
having with
this
himself.
is a decision by the administration.
6 months ago, he voted for it. Now he won't. This would be so simple. You wouldn't even have to deal with this question if Chuck Schumer would just do what he did 6 months ago. But instead, he's hanging around waiting for Saturday. I'd be interested if Chuck Schumer's actually going to show up at this No Kings, anti-Trump, crazy left-wing rally that's going to happen in D.C.
So,
I think they're waiting for that because
you're okay
he's
with
driven
using
by
this
the hard
firings
left that
as a
now
tactic?
controls the party.
You're comfortable with using the firing of federal workers as a tactic to try to
Well,
to
the administration,
induce the
we got a
Democrats?
$37 trillion debt, and we got Chuck Schumer who won't open the government. What are they supposed to do? So that's the tough situation right now. Thank goodness the president's stepping up and saying we're going to help our troops. I mean, Chuck Schumer says every day gets better for them, thinking totally politically. Well, it's not getting better for the men and women who wear the uniform, and President Trump understands that. It'd be nice if Chuck Schumer and the Democrats understood that and vote for what they voted for just 6 months ago, for goodness sake.
The House Judiciary Chair, Jim Jordan, thank you so much for being here this morning. I appreciate it.